Hello everyone, and I welcome all my lovely viewers and all the charming fans and all the aspirants of How to Crack SSB. And this is the fourth episode of the show, Youth Weds Passion. First of all, I would like to congratulate everyone, and we are receiving an overwhelming response from all of you, and I am very happy to see the kind of response we are getting. Even the best part is we have got many requests from aspirants where they are saying if we can make it 2 or 3 days a week this show. So we will definitely going to give it a thought and definitely will look forward for it. And today is the fourth episode, and I must say to each aspirant that from this episode and this episode itself is very important, because today's episode is on the overview and details on the OLQs, that is officer like qualities. So I'll be starting it with what is OLQ, what are the various things that the assessors SSB board is looking in a candidate, and then I would be discussing one by one each OLQ. So let's begin with the today's episode that's on the OLQ, and I really enjoy and I really like the OLQ's part, because this is the main foundation of the whole SSB. And trust me, if you can really understand and if you can really implement and if you can really adapt and bring the OLQs within you, then definitely I can give you the surety that no one can stop you for getting into Indian Armed Forces as an officer. So please be very focused from now onwards, because each episode will actually going to contribute a lot in actually getting you into the SSB, which will help you to be an officer in Indian Armed Forces. So to start with, what are OLQs? What do we understand by officer-like qualities? Now this term is very common, and I believe every aspirant has heard about it. They know it, what it is. And if I ask the aspirants, I believe more than, you can say, 95% will say that yes, we know what are OLQs. But do we genuinely know that what are OLQs? So let's talk on that. See, OLQs is not just a quality, or it is not just a simple, you can say, a kind of a learning which you have to understand and which you have to just cram, or which you have to just read and then it is done. Officer-like quality, if you understand at a very subtle level, it is more of actually a personality rather than a simple learning. So we learn so many things. So in the last episodes, I discussed so many things about with you. Let's say on PPDT, how it is conducted, what all things you need to keep in mind while doing and writing a story, while discussing a story. So there are many things which you can learn, which you can cram, but officer-like qualities, these are not, this is not a chapter which is just to be learned, or which you can say that you can absorb or cramp it. Rather, officer-like qualities are the qualities which showcases your whole personality. So it's basically the blueprint of who you are. So in a very simple and at a very subtle terminology, I will say officer-like quality is equal to the blueprint of your true personality. That means who you are, how you think, what kind of a personality you have, what kind of strengths you have, and what are your weaknesses. It is the whole blueprint of your personality. And this is the blueprint that is assessed in whole system of SSB by all the assessors, either psychologists, GTO, IO, interviewing officer, everyone is assessing your OLQs directly and indirectly using various means and tests just to assess that do you have the officer-like qualities to get into the forces, because this is the most vital and this is the basis of whole SSB, because this is what every Indian Armed Forces person must have, because this is the hallmark of an officer. So OLQs are basically the hallmark of an Indian Armed Forces officer, be it our Army, Navy or Indian Air Force. Now, having said and understood that what officer-like qualities are, now there are in totality 15 officer-like qualities divided in 4 groups. Number 1, if we talk about, so all these 15, and as per the type of officer-like quality, it has been divided in the respective group. So to start with, so the very simple starts with the planning and organizing. That's the first category that has 4 officer-like qualities. Then we can come on to the next, that is social adjustment, then social effectiveness. Then we come up with the last, that is the dynamism. So these 4 heads consist of various officer-like qualities, that is the 15 officer-like qualities. To start with, let's begin with the very first officer-like quality, and that is effective intelligence. So effective intelligence is the very first officer-like quality. Now, let's understand what is effective intelligence. Now, this you need to understand at a very, very subtle level and very with a focus and very consciously, because here majority of people, not just the aspirants but everyone, they do not understand that what genuinely effective intelligence means. So the biggest problem and the biggest mistake we generally commit, not just associated with SSB but in general as well, we consider effective intelligence as our intellect. Let me tell you, effective intelligence is not the intellect. Effective intelligence is equal to your real-time problem solving capability and capacity. The moment I say a real-time problem solving capability, that simply means and justifies the fact that it is spontaneous. Whereas when we talk about intellect is more of when you prepare yourself for something. As we, let's say, go for any exam, or let's say we are preparing for something and someone has told us that this is what you will be going to be tested on, and now you have to perform according to the guidelines and this is what will going to come in the test. But effective intelligence is not this. Effective intelligence actually checks and it evaluates that particular part of your mind, that particular part of your personality, which showcases that if you are encountered with a particular day-to-day problem or any challenge without any intermission, that means spontaneously, that means automatically or suddenly a problem comes, then how spontaneously you will going to handle it. This is what effective intelligence means. So your problem solving capability, and that too spontaneous, contributes and defines effective intelligence. So in case a person, like I'll give you an example, let's say a person who is very studious, scores very good, and in all his academics or in various other parts he is very good, but whenever it comes to any real life challenge, so real life challenge could be anything, so real life challenge could be number 1, suddenly he got to know that in his board exams he is failed, but his paper was very good. This is something, a problem which is unplanned, Or it could be a case, let's say a person, he got to know that someone very close in his family is no more. So these are the cases when we say these are the real life problems. So how the person is going to effectively manage and handle them and address them and solve them determines your effective intelligence. So in these cases, if a person who is very good, very studious, scoring very good marks, but he gives up and his mind goes blank on such problems and situations, as I just gave you an example, then you can say that person does not has any effective intelligence. That means this person do not carry effective intelligence, irrespective of the fact that he is a very good scorer. He scores very well. So from this you can easily understand that effective intelligence is all about your real-time problem solving capacity, and that too when problem comes without telling you and you have to spontaneously address it. So now the point comes in, what do we understand when we say problem solving and your capacity and real time you have to face it and you have to come out with a solution. So when I say problem solving is very simple. So let's say, for example, you were actually going from your school back to home, and in between you made a very small accident in which your hand is bleeding now, severely it's bleeding, and now this is a situation what you will do. So in this case, if you are not courageous, you are very weak, you are very not strong at heart, then there could be a possibility that you might start weeping, you might start crying, or you might even get shocked as well due to this. But if you are really a real life problem solver and you have an effective intelligence, that the simple thing could be, if your hand is bleeding, you will immediately going to take the best possible measure that you can take. So obviously when you were in school, so you must be having your handkerchief, so you take an immediate action, you took your handkerchief, you cover the wound so that at least the blood can be stopped. Immediately you took a public transport, you rushed to the hospital so that you can get the dressing done and get your injection done so that there should not be any septic. And finally you informed your parents that this is the situation and this is the problem that happened. Now here, when the problem came and the overall solution and the way you handle it, it showcases two things. Number one. So two things is, number one, problem solving. So the problem came, you solve it with different ideas and your presence of mind. Second thing, which is very important, is your resourcefulness. That means within a given problem which comes without telling you and you have to solve it spontaneously, you have to deal with that problem with the best available resources. You cannot say that a problem came and you will plan out something which is not available there. You have to find out the best solution with the resources that are available at that particular moment. So here the resources were a handkerchief with which you smartly used to stop the bleeding wound, and secondly you took the public transport immediately and rushed to the hospital. So this shows your presence of mind, within the presence of mind, this shows your resourcefulness, that these were the two possible best things that were available. You used them to actually showcase your effective intelligence and to solve that problem. And this is what overall effective intelligence means, and that is what is actually assessed in the SSB board while you are tested in various ways. Having said this, you have understood what is effective intelligence truly means and what really effective intelligence is all about, what SSB is looking for. But now the biggest question comes in, which I believe is the question of every aspirant, And thousands of aspirants have been asking me, thousands of aspirants have asked me. In every session I can say, every aspirant has this question in his mind, and here the aspirants get misdirected and they are misguided, or they do not have any solution or an answer. And that is, understanding effective intelligence, a person realizes that I genuinely always go blank whenever the spontaneous problem comes to me. Now the problem is, I go blank. It is not that I want to go blank, but I go blank. Now please tell me something, how I can have effective intelligence within myself, how I can improve, how I can imbibe effective intelligence, how I can make effective intelligence as a part of my personality, because I really want it to be. But the problem is, I will love to do it, but the problem is I always go blank. So this is the main thing which you have to understand, and that is what is my crux and my focus when I talk about OLQs, that how you can imbibe it within your own self, because that's the main bullseye, that's the main thing, that's the core of the OLQs that I have discussed in even the How to Crack SSB book, and that what I will be doing in all the episodes and today as well. So how to imbibe effective intelligence? Now remember one thing, understanding a particular OLQ, as you have understood the officer-like quality effective intelligence, is not everything. That means you say, I have understood something, I have read something, I have heard something. I have heard something from a very, let's say, experienced and a motivating person, and I'm done. Let me tell you, this is not 100%, and this will not help you completely to get this within your personality. But yes, it will help you to an extent to actually speed up, because this will going to act as a catalyst in helping you to imbibe this as your personality trait, using the method, using a particular way that I am going to discuss now. So it acts as a catalyst. Understanding is important, but it is not everything. Ultimately, officer-like quality is not just about understanding, it is all about experience. So you have to experience it, that yes, I have effective intelligence in me, that yes, whenever such situation comes in, I can handle it and I handle it. So let's talk about how you can imbibe effective intelligence within you. Now the biggest problem why people are deficient of effective intelligence, understand this and automatically you will come to know how to imbibe it. So how our mind functions and how we solve a problem. So our mind has been trained, because right from the beginning we are in an information age where we are just accumulating information, we are reading things, we are talking about them, we are acquiring more and more information, and we have a set perception in our mind for certain things based on the information that we have gathered. So let's say we read a book, we study a book, we study so many books, we gather so many information from them, and based on that we may make a perception, and we hold by that perception, we stand by that perception. Now when you stand by a perception, then you can handle a problem very smartly if that problem is within the bandwidth of that particular perception that you have accumulated. What I'm saying is, if a problem comes in and by any chance, if that problem is by chance from the same thing that you have already studied, then there is a probable possibility that you might be able to address it. Still I'm saying probable possibility, it is not still 100% sure. Why it is a probable possibility, I'll tell you. So there is a probable possibility you might handle it, but consider a case when a problem comes in which does not belong and which has nothing to do with your perception things which you have perceived and accumulated. That means it is the out of bound of the perception you have accumulated. In such cases, what happens is you go blank and you say, I don't know anything, what to do. And now why this is happening is, and why even the reason for that case, when I say, even though it is within the bandwidth of your perception, still there is a probability you might not be able to handle it. Why? Because we hold a perception and we stand by it, and we feel and we acknowledge and we start believing that this is everything. But let me tell you, this is not everything. The moment you will actually fickle down your perception, you will not be able to move forward. You will not be able to increase and maximize your dimension of perception. So what is required to truly imbibe effective intelligence within you? You need to understand here. See, whenever something spontaneous comes in, and if you train yourself just to go by the perceptive mind, just to go by the fickle-minded approach, then whenever a problem comes in, your reflex action comes into force. So what is your reflex action? Your reflex action is something which is not decided, but that comes spontaneously. Now, if your dimension of perception is not broad, if your dimension of perception is not looking forward, it's not going with an approach where you accept and acknowledge the fact that whatever you know is very limited and there is a possibility beyond this, then you will just going to get a simple answer from your mind whenever you will encounter a spontaneous situation, and that is, I cannot handle it and how I can solve this problem, or you will actually be hijacked by that problem. So in order to ensure that you do not get hijacked by your problem, that means your effective intelligence come into force. Your effective intelligence actually is showcased. Then in that case, keep the dimension of your perception broad, increase the dimension of your perception, think holistically. Then definitely whenever a problem arises, when you're not able to think and when you're not able to see any such problem within the bandwidth of your perception, but still you will have the possibility and you will still be capable to handle it, because you accept the very fact that the solution to this problem is possible, but it's just that it's not within the dimension of my perception. So automatically your real intelligence gets actuated, to which we acknowledge as effective intelligence, which is the very first OLQ and is being assessed in Indian Armed Forces within the SSB. So this is how you can really work and imbibe the real effective intelligence, the officer-like quality within your personality. And let me tell you, this imbibing any of the officer-like quality or even the effective intelligence which we have just discussed today, it's not something an overnight process, rather it's a gradual process. So when I say gradual means you have to be very conscious about yourself. When I say conscious, that means you have to monitor yourself and you have to work on this strategy which I have given you. See, my goal is this strategy what I shared with you, and for every OLQ I'll be sharing a strategy that how you can imbibe this strategy within you. So what I have done, I have devised these strategies very scientifically after studying the youth, after studying their behavior and what exactly is the challenge that is stopping them to go forward. So forming and giving it a logical and a scientific way, I have formulated a simple process, but you consciously have to work on it, because at times ignorance is a big problem, because at times you understand it and you start feeling that now I have a broader perception, but that doesn't mean you have a broader perception. You have to self-assess yourself that really are you able to now handle the real life problem more easily what you used to handle earlier. So this is your self-assessment which will help you to move forward towards experience rather than just accumulating information and going with a fickle-minded approach and with a very limited dimension of perception. So increase your dimension of perception, have a holistic sight, and keep assessing yourself, consciously observe yourself. Definitely, I can bet you, try it for a month, definitely you will going to see a very big improvement in the effective intelligence within your own personality. Because let me tell you, every human being on this planet has been granted with the effective intelligence by default. It's just that lack of understanding and ignorance has taken us far apart from it, but otherwise it is by default within us. You just need to actuate it, and how you have to actuate it I have just shared with you. Just increase the dimension of your perception, think broad, holistically, and definitely whenever a spontaneous situation comes in, you will be going to easily able to handle it. And for the rest of the OLQ, all the OLQs are well connected. In the upcoming episodes, we'll be discussing other OLQs. One by one, I'll be taking in the OLQs. And with every OLQ, I'll be suggesting you a way how to imbibe it. So that's all for today. Thank you so very much for joining live. And I once again thank you all, the lovely viewers, for joining live once again. Bye-bye. Take care. Jai Hind.